Well, thank you so much for having me here. First of all, appreciate the whole collaboration and just the community part of what you guys are doing. So I'm happy to be here. Yeah, my journey into noble being is actually a deeply personal one. So I'm an engineer. I grew up born and raised in India, so I was surrounded by a lot of spirituality, and I was trying to always like seek answers to why people suffer. Why is it that some people have millions and billions of dollars and are still unhappy? And why is it that people sometimes have no money are extremely happy? So I think that quest and curiosity to learn more about what really drives people's happiness is really kind of what got me to explore more. I couldn't find the answers that I was looking for when I was there. So that kind of, took me on a different path. I moved to the States in then 2007 to pursue my master's and spent way too much time at the library. Even though I went to school for engineering, I just devoured books on neuroscience, on brain health, Eastern philosophies of healing, and Western ways of thinking about how people heal and how people, become resilient and happy. And that served, in my opinion, as the seeds for what noble being is today. And then the second seed, I would say, is the a big event that happened in my life. My father, he got diagnosed with cancer, and he passed away a few years ago. And watching his entire journey dealing with this chronic condition and just witnessing a sharp decline in his overall health, not just the physical health, but psychological health, spiritual health, social health, really made me again curious and be like, why is it that despite the fact that he's going through this condition, why is it that we're seeing this such a massive decline in his overall health? And so that curiosity again um, wanting me to like find solutions for him, really establish the foundation of noble being and what it is today. And really, what noble being is we are helping patients in hospitalized settings or hospitalized contexts feel better and recover faster using immersive technology. And what we do is we take clinically validated mental well-being therapies and we make them completely experiential. So you put on a virtual or mixed reality headset and you find yourself in beautiful nature-based locations, which provides part of the therapeutic benefit. But then while you're there, we actually engage you in therapeutic games, therapeutic experiences such as meditation, breath work that help alleviate some of that stress, anxiety, and just overall increase your level of joy because you do have something else that you can connect to beyond the disease or the condition that you're experiencing. So yeah, that's a little bit about the background about why Noble Being was started in the first place and what we do. I think Boston as a community, as a city, does offer a lot of resources for founders, for entrepreneurs. But sometimes a lot of these resources can be overwhelming, right? You can have, there is such a thing as too much information. I think we're all kind of overloaded with just too many things that exist out there and not knowing how to navigate these resources. So I think part of the challenge is really that what's like a one-stop shop where I can kind of go in and do a quick search on if I'm looking for Boston-based let's say regulatory experts, can I connect with them? Or I'm looking for Boston-based commercialization or product experts, where can I find them, and so on. So I think that's part of the challenge. There's just so much knowledge and wisdom and creativity in the Boston area, and I think navigating that sometimes can be a little bit of a challenge. The other part personally that we're experiencing with Noble Being is, specifically when you asked about challenges in healthcare, is that healthcare is I don't want to use the word broken because it's not a broken system. It's just a system that is so vastly complex, especially in the Boston region. And I think this kind of plays out in all over the United States, to be honest, but Boston specifically, there's just different health systems, different tiers of health systems. How do you navigate these health systems? What is it that really drives innovation in these health systems? Who are the right people to talk to within these health systems? How do you connect with them? How do you create incentives that benefit both the founder, the startup that the founders created, as well as the institution that the founder is serving, in this case, health systems. So I think that is typically the challenge, is like, how do you really articulate a use case that aligns clinical benefits, economic incentives, public benefits in a way that is aligned for all parties involved. And I think kind of creating that framework can sometimes be challenging if you don't have the right people in your network, if how to navigate this. Absolutely. So I think we all probably know the most fantastic, amazing network, which the founder Stephanie has built, Startup Boston, right? So I think that's such I call it kind of the watering hole for all things entrepreneurship in the Boston area. So I think I would definitely highly recommend that network because she's built a fantastic community and fantastic group of people come together and just kind of share ideas and really smart people that can in the Boston ecosystem that kind of get together and talk all things startup, entrepreneurship, navigating startup challenges and so on. So I think that's one community that I highly recommend. We've benefited from that as well. There's way too many, right? I mean, there's also a bunch of VCs that are in the Boston area that are doing phenomenal job at hosting events and fellowships and accelerator programs. We, for example, graduated from the Visible Hands Founder Fellowship a couple of years ago, and that was again fantastic. They gave us like a little bit of a grant money to kind of kick off some operations within our business, and also helped us make some really good connections in the ecosystem. And go through a little bit of a program again on how to navigate, the challenges of running a startup. So I think Visible Hands has been quite hands-on in supporting founders. Then there's obviously Mass Challenge, right? I think it's such a very powerful community in the Seaport area now. They have been sort of the stewards of not just capital, but also all things entrepreneurship and innovation in the Massachusetts ecosystem. And I think they've been around for a decade plus, right? But lately, I think their programming and offerings are getting a lot more structured, and I think that's a resource that every founder in the Boston ecosystem should definitely explore. And they host a lot of events. They host obviously, accelerators and other kind of programs in different domains: health tech, climate tech, general, and probably fintech as well. I'm not sure the last cohort. Categories, but I think that's another network that I highly recommend. And then there's so many people around the area that are just in looking at like specific niche areas of businesses as well. There's communities focused on healthcare, communities focused on kind of ed tech and so on. So I think again, it really depends on what your area of focus is. And I think kind of piggybacking that last question that you asked me about challenges, I think that's one of the other challenges is that somebody who's kicking off things in Boston area, there is no like central place where I can kind of learn about what are the different networks or watering holes within the Boston ecosystem that I could potentially, tap into. And how do I tap into these networks? What's the best way to go about it? And if this doesn't exist, I feel like somebody should create it. Yeah, so Novobeing, obviously it's a Boston-based company. We're based here in the North Shore, in Wakefield, Mass, but we have a virtual office in Burlington as well. Um, and Boston's, it's a hub for all things biotech, life sciences, healthcare. Some of the smartest people that are working in healthcare and medical fields are actually based here in Boston. So I think, part of the fantastic opportunity that we have is we get to really interact with some of the smartest people here who are either affiliated with Harvard, for example. We're working on projects with Massachusetts General Hospital, for example, and they're affiliated with Harvard. And so we get to tap into a network of, again, some really talented people who are, singularly focused on driving really the economic growth of the city and of the state. So I think when it comes to access to capital, access to knowledge, access to people, I can't see that there's any other place better than Boston. If you are a company that's looking to kick off anything in the health and health tech or med tech areas of businesses. Yeah, so for us, this has been a great place to be. We have a couple of projects with hospitals in the Massachusetts area. About MGH, I mentioned Dana-Farber Cancer Institute. We have project going on in collaboration with AMGH and Dana-Farber. And then we've also connected with UMass Memorial Health in Worcester, Massachusetts, which is out west. But again, all of this wouldn't be possible if it wasn't for the people that connected us to the right people within these health systems. And then one thing led to another, and then we got projects. Yeah, so I think I kind of mentioned some of this in the previous answers that uh, there's just a massive amount of know-how and expertise that you can tap into in the Boston ecosystem, and specifically for what we are doing, in the whole digital health, digital therapeutics domain. There's so many companies here that have done some fantastic, innovative work in the field of digital medicine. Uh, to give you an example, there's a Boston-based company called Akili Therapeutics that created a video game to cure ADHD in kids, right? So I think that's just one of the examples that there's such innovation happening on all things health and wellness and digital therapeutics. I don't see I could kind of see myself being anywhere else but here. And again, access to talent is the other important thing, right? There's some of the smartest people graduating from MIT, Harvard, Northeastern, where I graduated from decades ago, or 12, whatever, 14 years ago. And I think there's just very strong entrepreneurial drive and networks that you can tap into. And so that's really why we're here. It's a great question. I think a lot of people are trying to unpack and really figure out what is indeed the future of XR, because when instances of the technology were created way back when in 2012, 2014, when the Oculus One, which was, I think, Rift, right? Oculus Rift was actually created as a project. That was the first vision for the world to be like the future can be immersive, and immersive is awesome. Not in every context, but in certain contexts for sure. So we all thought that immersive tech would, be absolutely this mega industry by the time, 5, 6 years from 2014. And but it did make a little bit of an impact, but not so much in healthcare and the industry use cases. It really did a lot of amazing, fantastic projects in the gaming world, right? There's just some of the most fantastic gaming projects that have come out in the XR from the XR innovations on the hardware side. But it hasn't picked up as much as folks working in the industry would have liked. We all thought the pandemic would certainly change that, because now people are working from home, and people are staring at their computer screens all day. They're missing that human connection and the interactions in in a 3D office type environment. And there's a lot of investments that went into immersive tech from 2020 all the way to 2023, and some of these projects resulted in companies like Accenture buying 60,000 MetaQuest headsets, which was unheard of. Like no other company was making such huge investments. And their vision again was like, how do we create like these virtual you know office like settings where people can just put on a headset and hang out with their colleagues or friends or coworkers in an immersive setting while they're stuck at home, right? So I think that was the vision. But again, it I think to a certain degree, we fail to understand that this is a new step up of technology. I mean, spatial computing, right? The whole broad umbrella term that Apple kind of created for all things 3D and spatialized and XR. Um, I think we still have a few more years before it can be absolutely mainstream. And so I think for us, we are looking at use cases within Novobeing that we can solve for today, right? For example, working with health systems where patients are stuck for extended periods of time. This is such an ideal place for us to deploy XR headsets in. As you can imagine, people who are going through these health systems, and there's millions of them each and every day, who are stuck in hospitals for sometimes 5 days, 10 days, 20 days, 40 days. I even know somebody who's been stuck in a hospital for like 60 plus days. And as you can imagine, if you can't leave these, buildings and floors, and the stress levels can be extremely high. So I think XR technology in these contexts can really serve as such a powerful benefit for folks to be able to virtually transport themselves to other places. So I think the future is still being built. Uh, you have to start from the ground up with this technology, and you have to look at hardware. And there's a reason why people are not willing to put on a headset for 5, 6, 10 hours a day because the form factor is just not there yet. Even though there are people that are putting on headsets for multiple hours a day, but that audience is still quite small. So I think from a technology standpoint, the headset form factor is going to make a huge difference in the coming months and coming years. Um, and I personally, honestly, am excited about the whole mixed reality portable headsets that have AI baked into it, right? So you'll realize that in a very very short amount of time, I think in a few months now, you'll be able to buy Ray-Ban like glasses from companies like Meta and Samsung and Google, and you'll be able to put these on, and you'll have real-time access to an AI assistant uh, through these headsets. So you'll be able to do some really cool things. You may not have the full immersion that VR headsets provide, but I think you'll have some really cool things that you'll be able to do that will not only, drive the coolness factor, but really will actually drive the economic value for, some of the things that we are doing. And I think that, in my opinion, becomes the most important area for anybody to focus on who's in the XR space is the tech can be the coolest thing out there. But if you don't have an economic benefit that drive the tech actually drives, then you won't see mass adoption. And I think that's why for us we're focused so much on the healthcare space is because um, we can actually literally calculate not just clinical benefits, but also economic outcomes by figuring out that people who used our Novobeing, XR programs within hospital settings, they were actually able to stay happier and they were able to potentially check out or leave the hospitals faster, and so resulting in shortened length of stays. And that proves to have a huge economic value for these hospital systems, because hospitals don't want patients to be, staying inside of hospital settings for long periods of time because they can then acquire, a lot of hospital acquired illnesses, hospital acquired psychosis in some cases. And so once they get better, they want them out of the door. So I think that that's where really some of this technology can come in handy. Very good question. I think the most rewarding part of this has been that my world has opened up so much, um, as to what really true healthy mental health is and what it looks like, right? So I think I actually tell this to people all the time that ever since I've started the company, and especially in the last couple of years, my mental health, and my spiritual health has been at an all-time high, right? And I think that's honestly because of everything that not only we've gone through as a company, as a founder, but really all the things that we've learned throughout this whole process. I've read tons of books now on the topics of mental health and how mental health is being treated in this country, and what are the different interventions that exist out there, and what does the research say. And I think understanding really the wisdom behind these interventions has really made me a better human overall. So I think the journey has kind of defined me in a lot of ways, and that's been the biggest benefit for me.